Well, I think you working for NASA, you have an obligation and a duty with your position there at NASA to the people. That's my opinion. And I think that you should take that as seriously as a military soldier takes his oath to protect the public. And I found this video last night, which is very telling. It's basically like the blueprint for the crisis acting astronauts to follow and how they're getting over with this false flag, whatever you want to call it. All right, so let's start off. And I'll point some stuff out as we go. Sorry, I have to hold the camera like this. You know how Facebook is.
Hi, Chris Hadfield here aboard the International Space Station. We keep busy on board the space station. Long days, lots of work, physical exercise. At the end of it, you're tired. But how do you sleep in space? In order to make it comfortable for the astronauts, originally, they were going to put us all in one habitation.
Oh, it's so stupid. All right. Let me just go ahead and point out what I figured out early on, and then you can just notice it. Okay, so how long does a parabolic arc create the feeling of 0G, or the effect of 0G? Sorry, maybe it's better like that. It's really hard for me to do this, guys. Okay, so the answer is about 15 to 30 seconds. So we'll round it off, and we're going to say, we'll do the higher end. We'll say 30 seconds, maybe even longer, 45 seconds. Okay. So we're going to say 30 seconds is how long they can appear to be weightless. If they're going to be using a vomit comet, which is the plane that goes up and then shoots back down and gives a feeling. That is exactly, you can hear it, you can see it, you can time it. Now watch. Let me turn it up loud. It is loud.
Hi.
Okay, now look, hold on.
That's
the first thing. It comes floating into the thing. That's when the time would start.
Field here aboard the International Space Station.
Well, just wait for the next one because he does it the whole time.
Space station. Long days, lots of work, physical exercise. At the end of it, you're tired. But how do you...
Okay, so right there is a cut. That's the first cut that they need to do because they can't keep it going.
In order to make it comfortable for the...
Okay, now watch. So he is coming into the... Look at this. Oh. I'm going to try to keep this professional. Okay, so he's already coming into the shot as the parabolic arc is making its maneuver. Okay, so you actually see him like fall into the frame. That's when you start counting. Watch.
Comfortable for the astronauts.
1,
Originally,
2,
they were going to put us all
3,
in one habitation
4,
with sleep
5,
stations all around.
6,
but the way the
6
station
seconds.
was eventually...
That's how long they gave us, folks. 6 seconds. Okay? So that's fine.
We have sleep stations.
We got the cartoon of the damn space station, which is an obvious cartoon.
Forward station, and inside the service module, which is in the aft. A total of 6 small bedrooms, sleep stations, and sleep pods. And inside each one is just a sleeping bag tied to the wall. You might think it's uncomfortable not having a mattress and a pillow, but without gravity.
All right, wait. So we're back into the picture again, okay? So you see, this will be the first frame. And you can do this yourself. All right, here. All right, let's start.
Having a mattress and a pillow, but without gravity,
1,
of course.
2,
you don't need anything
3,
to hold you up.
4, and you can see right there is where the parabolic arc is going. Let me go back to my thing. You see him as the parabolic arc is doing its maneuver. Watch while I count it out for you, because I can't stand it.
And a pillow, but without gravity,
1,
of course.
2,
you don't need anything to hold
3,
you up. You can just
4,
completely
5,
relax.
6,
You don't even need
7,
in space,
8,
you don't even have
9,
to hold your head up.
10,
So you can
11,
relax every
12,
muscle in your body.
13,
and your arms float up in front of you.
14
your head
seconds.
tips forward.
That's how long we got for that clip. But this is how they're fooling people into thinking this is being done in real time. They're like,
I saw the video. He was up there weightless for 30 minutes.
no, he wasn't. You're just too dumb to count. And you don't take the time to analyze the videos like we do. Like, we have already totally figured out NASA 100 million%. But let's keep going. Watch.
When I go to sleep, I gotta put on my pajamas. Because I have space jammies. I'll be right back.
Oh, that was about 1,
I'm in my
2,
super comfy
3,
Russian
4,
full-length pajamas.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Nice for when you
10,
have to get up in the middle of the night.
11,
And,
12,
ready to go to bed.
13,
Show
14,
you where I sleep.
15. See? That's another cut. So it was 15. Oh, this one's real interesting too. I gotta show you this one. Hold on.
Show you where I sleep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, cut. 1, 2, 3, cut. 1, 2, cut. See how they do this shit?
This is my
1, 2,
sleep pod.
3,
This is
4,
where I spend
5,
8 hours every
6,
day. Here on the
7,
space station.
8,
It's actually in the
9,
floor.
10,
So once you're inside, you
11,
just can't tell.
12, 13, cut. 1, 2, you get the fucking point? You get the fucking point? I hope I have totally exposed this to you guys, because this is how they made this video. And you can hear the jet in the back, and you can actually see him doing the parabolic arc, like, movement. You can see him go up and then come back down, acting like he's talking about. Hold on, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Cut. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Cut. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cut. 1, 2, 3. You see what I'm saying, dude? And I know that I'm annoying the fuck out of you by screaming out numbers and forcing you to watch this while the video's all shaky and it's probably not even on the image. But I'm doing this to make a point, guys. I analyzed the entire video from beginning to end, and that's how he's doing it, dude. Yep, bye-bye. See, guys, this is how they're getting you.
It's this Chinese spacewalk. A bubble rises in the pool. It's complete fraud. Here the helmet gets hit on the International Space Station, and a bubble rises into the pool. Tossing some bullshit, and a bubble appears at 3:39 in this video. And it takes an odd trajectory because it's in a water pool. Houston, we have a problem. Space is broken. Sorry, U.S. government. I have to show them the bubble. There's the bubble in the pool that we just saw. Yep, doesn't even go in a straight line. It's in a water pool. Takes a very odd trajectory because the water is actually moving around. It's not still.
You can see it very well.
You can catch these a lot in NASA videos, and the fact that these appear on camera means there's more bubbles that you're not seeing. The training for spacewalks are done in water tanks, and the actual spacewalks are fake. They're done in water tanks.
And here on the International Space Station, they once even got caught with a scuba tank in space.
Which is the faking of spacewalks in a swimming pool. In this vid, you catch a glimpse of someone wearing a scuba tank. Scuba tanks in space?
NASA does literally nothing in space. It's all bullshit.
The video is sped up, so it looks more natural. But yeah, they're underwater, and the video is sped up, and they do this on the Hubble Space Telescope as well. So that's how you know the Hubble Space Telescope never existed in orbit. This is all bullshit.
Installing a corrective optics package known as CoStar, Hubble was now poised to make some of the most groundbreaking astronomical observations in history.
I need somebody to sing the Little Mermaid song Under the Sea. They're in a water tank. From a distance, can you tell? What's with all this atmospheric bullshit? What kind of camera is this? Do they make it look like they're underwater on purpose? They have two water tanks. They have the water tank that they train in, and then they have this water tank for the fraud. They never work in space. The International Space Station is complete bullshit.
Gecko grippers. Moving on up. A piece of tape can only be used a few times before the adhesion wears off, and it can no longer hold two surfaces together. But researchers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, are working on the ultimate system of stickiness. You can read the Jesuit story here at nasa.freemasongovernment. Got some fake science pictures, lovely. I put space is really cold and really hot, says the astronaut. So why isn't temperature an issue? It's all trickery.
One of the things we do outside is just like inside, repairs. We have a lot of electric.
Did you hear that sound? A lot of things just clunked together at the same time, and she even dipped, and that's because they couldn't keep the plane steady in its dive. That's why that happened. She is not in an authentic zero-G environment on an international space station, because this is all bullshit.
We have a lot of electrical boxes.
You okay there?
And machinery,
Medusa? 25 minutes long. Her hair the entire time will be in that shape. It will never change. No matter what her hair hits, or she lays down, or she flies around. The hair is supposed to be moving through air, and yet it keeps springing back into that position. They have to maintain continuity, just like in the Hollywood films. They're not always on the zero-G planes, and if they're going to fool you, her hair has to be fixed like that. So sometimes if she's wearing a harness, or she's just taking regular pictures, and you will not know the difference. It will all look the same.
And sometimes they don't work quite right. Remember, space is really cold and really hot.
She said it herself, space is really cold and really hot. Sometimes the things on the outside don't work quite right, and they have to go out and do a spacewalk. So temperature is affecting the outside of the International Space Station. And these magical spacesuits protect them from those extreme temperatures. She said it herself. She's an astronaut. She would know. She wants us to remember that space is really cold and really hot. So not only is she telling us that, she wants us to remember that. So why don't you do science for yourself and investigate NASA? Because they want you to remember some basic facts. And some of their Hollywood shit doesn't make sense. So why don't you do what NASA has told you to do and do fucking science? They want to be exposed.
Anyway, have a look at the end of this. And there's a strange motion to the Santa. Take a look at the way it moves. It kind of skips out of her control a couple of times. First it dips down and then up a little bit, and then at the end it goes up a little bit, and she kind of looks a bit embarrassed, like she's been caught putting her hands in the cookie jar. Oops, I hope you didn't see that. No, we didn't see, Katie. Just keep the beautiful smile on your face, and that'll distract us from the hoax. Have a look at her hair. There's something odd about her hair. I know this is zero gravity and hair is supposed to stick out and go all over the place, but her hair doesn't really flop around naturally. It's always sticking out kind of rigidly. Maybe they permed it in that position, or perhaps they're hanging her upside down. As she shakes her head from side to side slightly, you can see the hair always springs back to a particular position with respect to her head. It should flop all over the place.
There's supposed to be a woman in space. Her hair is short. Did NASA get scared because the women with long hair have helped wake up the public? So from now on, are the women going to have short hair? In real life, think about women in the military and how they shave their heads. In real life, an International Space Station, if you can only take sponge baths, women on their own would probably shave their heads. And if they didn't want to do that, they would probably be instructed to shave their heads. You would not go to space with this giant, crazy hair that these female astronauts have shown. Can you not see what's wrong with this picture? Ladies with long hair, how many times in your life does your hair go into your face? Why doesn't that ever happen with the female astronauts on the International Space Station? Her hair will never go into her face because it's fixed. It will always spring back into that position.
Bags before they get too far away. One of them is
Where are the feminists? Why aren't women demanding that we send the first female astronaut to the moon? Men did it 6 times in 4 years. Man got to plant a flag on the moon 6 different times in just a 4-year period. This is ridiculous. Who cleans the International Space Station? They put their dirty socks and dirty feet over everything. Who is scrubbing the International Space Station? Where is the housekeeper? Everybody should get involved because this is incredibly ridiculous. All you have to do is investigate NASA for yourself. This house of cards of lies needs to come crashing down so that people can start questioning what they're told. Here's iJustine. She has a vlog. Her hair flows in the air, as it would, because the hair is moving through air. So it's going to flow as you bounce around. And on the International Space Station, this does not happen with the women. They do flips, they lay down, they do all kinds of things. They bounce from here to there. They pretend they're Superman. Their hair will never look like that.
The heart of the space station, really. This is the service module. This is the central post. In case we had any problems, I know a couple of the questions were about what type of things do you have to worry about. And some of the things we have to worry about in space are fire. If we had a fire, if we had a depressurization, like we were hit by a micrometeorite and it made a hole. So we gather here as a group of 3 or 6 and then figure out how we're going to either fight the fire, patch the hole, or solve the toxic spill. And what's cool about this module, of course, it's the central post. It also has great windows right down toward Earth. It has controls to fly in, visiting space. No problem. Это пробка. For our ride home, it's a little bit squishy, but everybody asks, how do you sit in the Soyuz? And you sort of sit in your seat like this. Everybody has a handmade seat for them, sorts of survival gear, with us, keeping us safe in here. So they've pretty much thought of everything. And we'll be home on the planet within the next 12 hours. Pretty shocking.
They're medical experiments.
So sometimes we're doing a medical experiment.
Pee in a tube.
We're trying to understand what's happening to our bodies up here, especially with respect to bone loss and things like that. And so actually what we'll do is when we go to the bathroom, we'll actually collect samples, which is easier to do than you might think.
Easier to do than you might think. What do we think? Let's talk about that for a minute. They use the bathroom and they collect the urine into those tubes. And it's easier than you might think. How is this done exactly?
Swallowing thing I wouldn't recommend at home.
So you can hear jet engines in this video too, because she's on a plane.
Number 2, right here.
This is the bathroom.
I'll show you.
You sit on that little tube with your butt cheeks and you take a crap. It apparently has suction.
Make sure things get let go the right direction.
Do you notice how clean this is? Do they clean the inside of that tube? Apparently the suction is so strong that crap doesn't touch the sides of this thing. Because there's not really a seat for this, when this thing is sucking the crap out of your anus, does it pull you down? Are you stuck? Now she has to pretend that this is real, so she's going to pretend that it stinks, even though she's putting her hands all over it.
And it smells a little bit, so I'm closing it up.
Yeah, close that thing up because it smells like shit.
And this guy...
Now she's going to show you a separate funnel that they use for urinating. And it's the same for both guys and girls. And she also says you can go number 1 and number 2 at the same time. So you can press this funnel against your vagina while you're sitting on this fake crapper.
And it smells a little bit, so I'm closing it up. And that's, of course, for number 2. And this guy right here is for number 1. So they're sort of 2 slightly separate functions, but you can do a little, essentially both by hanging on right here and doing number 1 and number 2.
So you can do number 1 and number 2, even if you're a female. Because she would know because she's a female. And she hangs on while the suction is pulling her crap out of her anus, and she presses that funnel against her vagina. And apparently that has suction too. Now if you're a guy, is the suction so strong that you just point your penis at it and hopefully the urine goes flying into the right direction, into the air that's being funneled into that thing? Or do you put your penis inside of that funnel and you touch the yellow part? Well, that might hurt. And what if you're a woman? That gets pressed against your vagina and it sucks on your vagina while you urinate, right? And this is both the same for guys and girls. Do they clean this thing afterwards? I just bring it up because She says these urine collection experiments are done easier than we might think. Well, what exactly do we think? We're not told how they do these things. So, are we wrong in what we might think? How is urine collected into these little tubes, especially if you're a woman? Do they have a funnel that you pee in that's separate than the one that's in the bathroom? Do you press that against your vagina? Does it collect the urine that way? It pulls air and urine into a compartment, and then it separates this air and urine, and it puts the urine into these little tubes, and it's easier than we might think. Does each woman get a different funnel for her vagina? Is it different for guys? They're worried about bone loss because they're in 0G and they have to maintain their heart rate and have to constantly work out even though they can't shower and they only take sponge baths. But how does the funnel against the vagina work? Because, you know, if you're a woman and you're using the restroom, you might have to wipe front to back. I know there's some women that spread the lips and they're pretty skilled at peeing into the toilet standing up. That's a skill that some women have. It's pretty funny. They could be in the restroom standing and their feet are pointing a different way. And women could be freaked out like, what in the fuck? Is that a transgender? But yeah, doesn't the funnel have to go against the vagina? How are you peeing into that funnel, and why is it universal? Why is it unisex? How are you collecting these urine samples? Why is your hair permed? Do they shave their legs? They don't have to shave their legs? Why would you go to outer space with a full set of hair when you can't shower properly? How many times a day are you taking sponge baths since you constantly have to work out to maintain your heart rate? See, we have a lot of questions, but we can't get the answers from NASA because they will not answer the public's questions.
Way faster
NASA is Mickey Mouse bullshit.
than bullets.
All of a sudden I look and see the solar panel just instant hole this big.
This is quiet.
Instant hole that big in a solar panel. And nobody dies in these spacewalks.
So dangerous to send out missions, they can take out a spacecraft.
And cosmic rays punching through our brains.
Yeah, what about that fucking radiation? I thought space has deadly radiation.
And our
Why are the spacesuits so magical? What if you wore a spacesuit, can you go into a volcano? They are a bullet traveling at an enormous speed. Yeah, you can't even fathom how fast this stuff is going. It could be smaller than a grain of sand. If it hits you, you're dead. It's just that simple.
genius plan.
I mean, they talk about micrometeorites and they talk about space debris. Space debris has to be traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, otherwise it starts accelerating towards the Earth. And they tell you that they had to go get space debris because it's such a danger. Doesn't matter what size the space debris is, if it hits you, you're dead.
Don't let the force leave you.
To keep astronauts safe. But will they work? And if astronauts do make it to Mars, what will they wear? Humans can't survive.
Look at that.
Pressure on.
They showed you some fake Apollo footage from the moon. They have no shame. The Apollo missions are ridiculous. They want you to believe we went to the moon 6 times in 4 years. They sent man to the moon 9 times, and out of those 9 times, they landed on the moon and planted 6 different flags in a 4-year period. Can you just think about that for a second? Imagine from today to 4 years from now, if we went to the moon and planted 6 flags. That's what they want you to believe that they did with 60s technology. It's been over 40 years where they don't go back. Why not send the first female astronaut to the moon if it's so safe to go to the moon and come back? We were in a space race with Russia. The countries are working together and they're lying to their own people. Our leaders get installed. Learn about Freemasons and learn of the Jesuit order. There's tremendous fraud in science. And our rights are being destroyed. That's why you need to care.
Basically, the gas in your lungs would boil.
You would be dead very quickly. They are a bullet traveling at an enormous speed.
This is not an actual documentary about anything. It's fiction. NASA does nothing in space. You can find this out just by simply looking for pictures of the Earth from space. We would have thousands by now of genuine photography, since the satellites are supposed to be so far away from the planet in geostationary orbit. NASA's channel always says live now as if they're actually fucking doing something. It's a joke.
Roscosmos, the member
Where do they take sponge baths? There is no special area for all of these people to be taking sponge baths. What happens if both toilets break on the International Space Station?
involves
If sound can't travel in a vacuum, how do you propel yourself in space?
areas on the ground that particularly
Rockets push off of the atmosphere, and outer space is a completely different environment. It's supposed to be a vacuum. How do you propel yourself with chemical propellant?
like this one. Astronauts
If electric propellant works in space with solar panels, and it's old technology, why can't you show satellite technology in a vacuum here on Earth? Put something on a string and let it whiz around in a circle so we can see this actually working, so we can believe it. As a matter of fact, that would exist anyways because you would have to test this stuff since satellites are supposed to be evolving from the size of school buses all the way down to CubeSat satellites. And we don't have those videos. Oh, isn't that funny? You don't have to test your science. And in Yahoo News, the cartoon bullshit just continues. They talk about how they're thinking about having a rover that can go into extraterrestrial oceans. So we'll be able to see maybe the Earth's ocean in NASA videos in the future. So we'll be looking forward to that. Elon Musk says SpaceX's most powerful rocket yet could transport a manned crew to this very important moon of Jupiter. Also, not only can we go to Mars, we can go to Jupiter. We could go everywhere. We could even leave the galaxy, probably. They always talk about the Hubble Space Telescope all day long. They're breathtaking views of space. All you have to do is look up the bubbles in the water and fake spacewalks, because spacewalks are fake, and that's how you know this thing doesn't exist. They made this image for the public, has nothing to do with reality whatsoever. The Hubble Space Telescope does not exist. This is bullshit. And in other news, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking is a theoretical physics genius, but the mystery he finds most intriguing is women. Yes, he can tell you all about the Big Bang and multiverses and string theory, but when it comes to people on the planet, he has no idea how the fuck they work. So I'm supposed to believe that Stephen Hawking knows all about this and can't tell that it's bullshit and that there's science fraud. But he knows nothing about women. They're so intriguing. But he'll tell you that this is real all day long. NASA Mars rover finds clear evidence for ancient long-lived lakes. They filmed that on Earth. They say it's Mars. People can't figure it out. Well, here's one of the fucking articles. The new biggest thing in the universe and why it's a headache for scientists. There's a bunch of copied and paste stars into a fucking image and people think it's great. The biggest thing in the universe sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, if you're a sheeple, it might. Well, not exactly. We all love a good cosmological superlative, the hottest, the brightest, the most massive. But studying space is rarely that simple. In many cases, the most of the universe bend our theoretical properties of physics in ways we don't quite understand. And our scientists and astronomers are constantly stunned at space.com. A group of international scientists have recently discovered something that's vying for the title of the biggest thing in the observable universe. A clusterfuck of rings of galaxies located about 7 billion light years away. But the ring detailed in the latest monthly notice of the Royal Astronomy Society is so big that some cosmologists are saying it violates the basic theoretical principles governing the universe. Doesn't quite make fucking sense, is what we're trying to say. NASA estimates 1 billion Earths in our galaxy alone. There's gotta be a lot of fucking aliens looking at the sheeple saying, holy fuck, those motherfuckers are slaves. The proposed cluster isn't visible from Earth because it's so fucking far away. It was just revealed to cosmologists after they observed the 9 gamma ray bursts. That's how we found it. Which are the result of supermassive stars collapsing into black holes in your head. The bursts offer brief clues about the location of other galaxies. In this case, the bursts are so close together and similar to one another that scientists think they must be a single feature.
The team said there's a very low chance, 1 in 20,000, that the arrangement appeared by random chance. Here's a pretty picture of some bullshit you can look at and be surprised with your billions of dollars. Thank you for sending us that money, guys. This discovery is the latest addition to a mix of galaxy clusters referred to as galaxy filaments. It's great walls and massive threads that clothe the vast voids of space. These features are so inconceivably large that scientists don't know how the fuck is going on. They're losing their minds, guys. Send us some more billions of dollars. If you were to travel from one end of the new cluster at the speed of light, it would take more than 5.76 billion years. Contributor to the Lost Springs discovery, Professor Lawrence Cochran Observatory in Budapest, said that if we could see the feature in the night sky, it would be 70 times bigger than the moon. That's pretty fucking big. Did you know that Earth is 6 times bigger than the moon? But the ring has stiff competition for the title of biggest. Team of scientists found another enormous cluster back in 2013. The tapestry of galaxies estimated to be somewhere around 10 billion light years across. This ring is based on a distinct observation that the first cluster is beyond a humorous over-distributed bird, said some fucking guy, astrophysicist. Holy shit, we got a name? John Hakila, an astrophysicist professor at the College of Charleston who contributed to the discoveries, both the giant ring and the Great Wall. He thinks the Great Wall will end up taking the throne, but added there's still a lot of research to be done because the wall doesn't have a strong, distinct boundary. Regardless, both of these features are problematic because they might contradict what is known as a cosmological principle. And that can't fucking happen because the laws of physics don't bend, guys. They don't fucking bend.
Hi, yes, sir. Are you an atmospheric scientist?
Yes.
Okay, yes. My name's Amanda Baise, and I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I am extremely overwrought and concerned about the condition of the atmosphere. I mean, we've been overcast for over a month, and I witness aircraft emitting emissions across the sky that are spreading out and turning into artificial cloud cover. Can you please explain to me why this is happening?
Okay, well, recall on a real cold day, you see a car going down the street, and there's like water vapor condensing in the exhaust of the car on a cold day. You've seen this before?
I've never seen that trail persist, sir, if that's what you're getting at.
Okay, well, typically you don't form ice in the exhaust of a car, but in the exhaust of an aircraft you form ice. And this region happens to be an area where contrails form and persist for a long time.
Okay,
it's
so you're saying these are
very, very moist.
Right, okay.
And, but it doesn't have any particular impact on...
Oh my goodness.
Well, it reflects radiation back into space, so you get a little bit of cooling or heating depending on what the weather conditions are. But
boy, you got a whole bunch of stuff there. Okay, so I have several problems.
It's just water vapor
right.
making ice. Is all it is.
It's just water vapor making ice. Okay, so I have...
Right, and most of that water vapor comes from the background atmosphere.
Okay, can you stop filibustering me?
On dry days, you don't see these contrails.
Yeah, can you allow me to make a statement before you make another one, please? Okay, sure. So first of all, I have several major problems with everything that you've just stated. Number one, first of all, you haven't identified the specific aircraft that I'm speaking of that are leaving these emissions. I personally believe, simply from witnessing and documenting these actions taken from the airplanes, that they are intentionally adding particulates to the atmosphere. That's number one. Number two, you said that there's not any major impact. The sun, I just told you, has been blocked out from reaching the Earth in this area for over a month due to artificial overcast conditions from these emissions that you are saying is just water vapor, which should technically dissipate. If you are a scientist and this is about science,
well,
water vapor dissipates.
Let's get a few things straight. There's 1,000 or more papers published on this phenomenon. It's well known. It was documented by a group called Smith and Appleman back in the 1930s. And it is, all aircraft do this if they fly at the right altitude.
Okay, so there I can also give you 1,000 papers published on aircraft emissions that are being intentionally sprayed into the atmosphere for geoengineering purposes. From credible sources, from doctors, pilots, scientists, whistleblowers, other researchers. I myself have lab results of hair, water, soil, and blood showing high levels of strontium, barium, aluminum, cadmium, lead, mercury, and other nefarious elements in these natural sources that should not be there. So you can give me 1,000 papers on whatever, but
well, why did you call me if you're not going to listen to what I'm saying?
I'm calling you because I want help from an honest person that's going to give me credible information. Where's the air data here?
You don't want to listen to what I have to say.
So you're not going to listen to my complaint? You're just going to spew out your contrail theory?
Chemtrail theories and all these other things.
I haven't used the word chemtrail, not one time.
Aircraft generate contrails on a daily basis. Like every morning you see the traffic going from the east down to Florida, and there's hundreds of contrails being formed. Those aircraft are not carrying extra weight.
Okay, yeah.
How
do you know that?
Kilograms of water per every kilogram of fuel they burn.
Okay.
So that water goes into making clouds.
Okay, I want to ask you a science question since I have a scientist on the line. Okay, where is your data showing me the levels of heavy metals that are in the atmosphere and biological material? Because that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, heavy metals, there is some cosmic dust and other things that come into the stratosphere. There's strontium, there is, I don't forget there's some long-lived kind of tracers, but most of that kind of stuff comes from dust. You know.
So you're saying when my friend was poisoned with barium, it was from stardust?
Your friend was poisoned from barium.
Yeah, I actually brought the scientific. I brought all of his lab results forward and gave them in an EPA hearing live on C-SPAN. So if you'd like to scoff some more at my research or my proof, you can, but it's going to make you look like a fool. I have already brought these tests forward.
None of this stuff has ever been published in credible journals.
Who are you saying is a credible journalist? Someone that's paid to work for the government? I mean, these are independent researchers. You're saying there's no such thing as an independent, credible...
Chemistry, atmospheric physics, nature, science, journal of geophysical
Right,
research.
and I'm telling you that that's who this is being done by. These lab results are coming from labs, from medical labs. These aren't my friends that are just saying, I've been poisoned, and I'm going to write it on a piece of paper. These have been tested scientifically. Their blood, hair, soil, and water. Why are you not listening? Why are you immediately disregarding what I'm trying to tell you? I'm very concerned.
I get attacked all the time by people with these types of arguments, but there's...
you get attacked all the time with people that have barium poisoning? That's scary. How many people have come to you saying that they've been poisoned?
Well, listen to this argument. Those clouds are at 40,000 feet above the Earth. The wind up there is blowing about 100 miles an hour. Anything you see over Virginia Beach doesn't strike the Earth again until it hits Europe. So anything over your head is not something you're breathing.
So the stuff that's being sprayed here is being dumped on Europe?
There's nothing being sprayed here.
Oh my gosh.
It's exhaust emissions from aircraft.
Okay, fine. If that's what you want me to believe, okay, I will go.
I've got photos. I have flown through contrails. I've got pictures from about 30 feet behind me.
So do I. I have video footage of me up in an aircraft on 6 different flights taking photographs of the aircraft emissions being spewed out into our atmosphere. So we can do this back and forth. I just need you to tell me, where can I find the atmospheric data proving that the air is not contaminated with heavy metals and biological material and chemicals?
Well, there's hundreds of thousands of papers on atmospheric composition.
Oh, okay.
I just around in the atmosphere all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So where can I find this?
You look at journals like Geophysical Research.
Yes, and I post it, and I post. Yeah. No, sir. I'm just a buffoon who does no research.
I mean, speaking to me, you obviously know that I'm researched in this issue, so don't belittle me and don't try to act like I don't read and stuff. I just published a multiple papers on my Facebook page recently. I'm not going to sit here and try to debate on which one of us is more intelligent, the NASA research scientist or me. I'm coming to you as a civilian citizen, asking you to help me with this obvious environmental problem.
I get emails and calls like this, and people are angry.
Of course we are.
There's no... Well, I'll tell you this, that the air you breathe is mainly contaminated with stuff that comes from the surface, not stuff that's emitted at 40,000 feet.
Yeah, I don't believe that, but go ahead.
Well, you see where the clouds form on any day? That's where the lower part of the atmosphere is mixed up to. Because when you fly on an airplane, you'll notice that the sky is really smoggy when you're down low. And you get up to about 3,000 feet off the ground and things clear up all of a sudden, right?
Can you explain to me where these contrails were 20 years ago, please? Because I have been... No.
They've been here since the 30s.
So you're saying the skies have been... You are trying to tell me that the skies have been crisscrossed with airplane pollution from horizon to horizon since I was born. Is that what you're trying to convince me of?
Well,
Horse crap.
The old turboprop planes didn't fly very high. The atmosphere cools at a rate of about 6 degrees per kilometer. So when you get up to 35,000 feet, the atmospheric temperature is about -40. And so any water that comes out of an airplane will freeze. And when you burn fuel, you create CO2 and water vapor.
What about dirty JP8 fuel additives?
Who?
What about dirty JP8 fuel additives?
JP8 fuel additives are a lubricant and an anti-coking additive. And they put a pint in every 100 gallons or something like that. I've measured emissions from aircraft, and most of it is little bitty sulfate particles and soot.
Have you measured the emissions coming from military aircraft?
Yes.
Oh, you have? I would like to see those papers. Where is that published? Right, where's that published?
I'll send you a NASA report. Give me your email.
Okay. It's Matt.
At nasa.gov. And I can forward you the NASA report.
Yeah.
There's a huge number, like 10 to the 6 sulfate particles per cubic centimeter of air coming out of an engine. So there's lots of tiny little particles, and they're soot. The primary composition of engine exhaust is CO2. That's like 99.9%.
Okay.
And water, well, the water is about equal of CO2. So CO2 and water are the primary things coming out of an engine.
Okay. So
and then soot. So when the engine exhaust hits the cold atmosphere, the water condenses on the soot particles.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you this. With all of these people that are calling you or that are writing you that are mad and angry and upset, why, being a scientist, are you not taking their complaints seriously?
Well, it's because I understand what's coming out, and I've done tests on the ground and in the air. There's a whole body of literature out there that describes this stuff, and people are working to try to reduce the emissions from aircraft, and we're planning to do an experiment. We did one called Alternative Fuel Effects on Contrails and Cruise Emissions.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that and commented on it, and I didn't like the answer that I got. I thought it was just garbage, but I don't know.
I haven't answered any comments online.
Okay. Well, no, I'm talking about the video of the chase plane, the NASA chase plane that's following after the emissions, and they're sucking them up. Right, that's what I'm talking about. I commented on the YouTube video, and I didn't like the response that I got. It just seems that so being a scientist, wouldn't you and shouldn't you be open to new information and new scientific data and testing that other independent scientists have done?
Sure. I go to conferences all the time. I presented that work in Germany at the International Conference on Transport in the Atmosphere.
Were you at the Paris one, the climate conference in Paris?
No. I didn't get funding to go to that one.
Right.
But, I go to the scientific conferences. There's a whole group of people out there. We take this very seriously. And we're gathering information for policymakers. We're not part of some big conspiracy.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
But, you know, I don't get paid that much. I'm not making any money off this stuff. I grew up with a, you know, curiosity about the atmosphere and physics, and that's what I've done.
Well, I think you working for NASA, you have an obligation and a duty with your position there at NASA to the people. That's my opinion. And I think that you should take that as seriously as a military soldier takes his oath to protect the public. No, you're not protecting the public by when I call you and I tell you about airplanes, you immediately go into your contrail defense. And then you say, well, I've been attacked a lot of this. Of course you have, because we're awake and aware, researched individuals. We're very intelligent, and we're hip to what is going on. This is a covert military spraying operation, and we need help. And I just want to know the daily numbers for the heavy metals and biological and chemical material that's being dumped on us on a daily basis. Today is a day.
It's not coming from airplanes.
I'm witnessing it, sir. We all are.
You're seeing contrails forming. You're saying that they're somehow strontium and other metals. You know,
don't you know what geoengineering is?
I know what geoengineering.
Okay.
The biggest effect that aircraft emissions have is on cloud formation. They emit really small sulfate particles that can influence the number and reflectivity of warm clouds, you know, when they're flying up to get to altitude.
Right.
And then, of course, they form these ice clouds. And the ice clouds can form cirrus sheets, and the cirrus sheets can snow. They can dehydrate the upper atmosphere.
Hence the reason we've been overcast for a month, you know, over a month and a half, if that, you know, so we need the sun.
We get a lot of moisture in the atmosphere.
It was like this in the summertime, too. I documented it and did the same thing in the summertime, so it doesn't matter what time of year. The airplane pollution, which I have not used the term chemtrail at all during this entire conversation, but the airplane pollution is heinous, it's an atrocity, it's a crime against humanity, it's blocking out the sun, and we need people like yourself to stand up and forget about your pension and forget about whatever's going on and because use the intelligence and information that you have to help us, because we are in a desperate state. The planet is dying. If you are a scientist, you know the bees are dying and the planet is dying. We're running out of time.
I understand that stuff. I read other types of scientific literature other than just clouds. Our group does work to understand how the phytoplankton feed back to form clouds over the ocean, and how you know, desert dust affects the cycle of phytoplankton, and you know, we're involved in a lot of different scientific endeavors. And I hear these arguments that you're making, but I understand contrails and cloudiness very well. And I've been up there and I've flown through it. I've observed contrails forming, and I know that it's the water vapor coming out of the aircraft that's forming those clouds.
Okay, so are you telling me that you can definitively state to me right now, 100% fact, that there are no aircraft up in the atmosphere spraying anything?
I can definitively say that. Because
wow.
all commercial aircraft.
Oh, you're so busted. That is
very true statement.
It's about as unscientific as you can get. You are stating that you know for a fact, just living here in Hampton Roads, it's not like you live in California or know of any other clandestine spraying operations. What about when they sprayed the people of St. Louis, Missouri back in the day doing the testing of the nuclear stuff? Do you know about that?
Well, you know, I can't state that there hasn't been somebody doing that.
Oh, but you can state that they're not doing it now.
If you look at the airplanes, you look at FlightAware. You can look over your house. You can tell what commercial flight.
Yeah, but you can't. Military aircrafts do not show up on flight radar or FlightAware.
Military aircraft don't typically fly routinely within the North Atlantic and the East Coast flight corridors.
And I believe the transponders are off. Go ahead.
You can see the traffic coming out of D.C. going south every morning, and there's just these contrails that are left behind, and you can look at the tail numbers of the aircraft. And let me tell you, commercial aircraft will not carry anything that adds a pound of weight to them. And they burn fuel. What a DC 787 or 747 burns about 25,000 pounds of fuel an hour. And so they're emitting over 25,000 pounds of water vapor into the atmosphere every hour. And so that water vapor, 25,000 pounds of it, condenses to form ice. And,
Okay.
you know, over a year's time, there are billions of gallons of jet fuel burned, releasing billions of gallons of water in the upper atmosphere. And when it's minus 40 degrees outside, or up to minus 60 degrees in some places, you don't get water vapor, you get ice. And that is what contrails are all about.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, thank you for that, you know, little educational thing on contrails. Now, so are you going to send me information? I want up-to-date daily information on the levels of heavy metals that are here. Do you have that?
That's not my bailiwick, but things that you breathe on the surface and you intake is generally from local sources.
Okay, I just need the levels of the heavy metals in the air that I'm breathing. Is that a problem for you to find? I mean...
Well, it depends on where you live.
I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, in Oceana, right next to the military base.
Well, you can find fuel analysis, and fuels don't contain any heavy metals.
But the atmosphere does.
JP8 additives contain thiosulfate, and it's kind of a proprietary formula, but they don't add too much to it. And the military's getting away from JP8. They found that the cost didn't justify the benefits. The main reason they burned JP8 was to prevent coking in afterburners. You know, in an afterburner, you're burning raw fuel, and it coats the inside of the engine with soot, and that tends to shorten the life of the engines. So they've made this additive. I guess somebody's making $1 million or $1 billion off selling it to the military, but they decided it wasn't worth it.
Mr. Anderson, do you realize how disheartening it is for me to even speak to you, knowing that your statement and your decision is that no plane in the entire Earth is spraying anything? I mean, how can I even deal with you?
You know, I don't know that there are a dozen planes out there spraying something, but it's a very, very inefficient way to poison somebody that's living on the surface of the Earth.
It's not when you use fleets of aircraft all over the entire globe in every single country. It's not just 12 planes. It's like 12 million planes. Everybody that I know in every country that I know, and I know a lot of people, they all state that they're being poisoned by aircraft. Do you mean to tell me that everybody is wrong and we're all just being poisoned by quote-unquote water vapor? Come on.
Well, I'm saying that commercial aircraft, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, all these aircraft generate contrails. And I can guarantee you, we could go to an airport, we could take everything off an airplane, and we could load up the tanks with standard jet fuel, and you could get an analysis sheet. And in fact, the refineries have to provide an analysis sheet to the operators to show that the fuel meets the certification for the engines, because engines have to operate 100% reliably.
How do aircraft? How are aircraft?
Nothing in that fuel, but you know, there's less than 3,000 parts per million of sulfur. It has to have a certain boiling point, certain heat of vaporization, all these other things. But when you burn fuel, you generate water vapor.
How are aircraft being tested?
Ice when it gets cold outside.
Yeah. How is the weight of the aircraft being tested? Do you have that information?
The weight?
Yeah, like when
Well, every pilot does a weight balance before they take off.
How?
They have to be assured that the aircraft's not going to roll to one side.
Right. How do they do that?
Well, they know where they're loading passengers. They know where they've got fuel. They know where they have the luggage. It's a requirement. They have you see pilots with their sheets up.
Right. So how do they test it? Do they just use scales or something like that?
Yeah. Well, they do initially. With the plane unloaded, they put it up on jacks and they measure the weight and balance.
They put what on jacks?
The whole plane.
Oh, they put the plane on jacks, and then what do?
They measure the weight and balance.
How do they measure the weight is what I'm asking you.
They've got these jack stands that have a kind of like a bathroom scales in them.
What about the center of gravity? How do they test for that?
Well, they've got a jack up under the front nose wheel, and the other jacks are on the wings.
So they use these jacks. You want me to believe that they use jacks to test the weight and the center of gravity?
Not before every flight. They do this when they take it in for maintenance. And then they monitor, where, how many people come on it. It's not perfect because you don't know how much people weigh. But they have to know that to be able to, if the front of the airplane's too heavy, they can't properly.
So what do they do? Do they put weights? Do they put weights on top of these balancing scales on top of the jacks or something, and then move them around in the aircraft, or how do they do that?
Well, there's what they call hard points under the wings. It is a place that's really rugged.
Okay.
And then they put these jack stands underneath them and jack up the plane, and they measure the weight on each one of the stands.
Is that the standard practice for all aircraft, like military and commercial?
All commercial, and military too.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm glad that you explained
Look at the statistics on fuel burn.
Okay.
And then fuel is 86% carbon, and of course that you generate a kilogram of fuel generates 3,200 grams of CO2, which is a big concern. That's contributing to global warming right there. And then you get water vapor.
Yeah.
For the CO2, for the hydrogens that are on there, there's about 140 grams of hydrogen that combines with oxygen to form water vapor.
What you just said to me about testing the aircraft and the center of gravity, that actually makes sense. Like, I was just thinking about it in my mind. I think you're telling the truth about that. So, no.
I haven't said anything to you that's not true.
Yes, you have. And I can't tell if it's...
Everything I've said to you is published in the peer-reviewed literature.
Well, you would have absolutely no idea if there are aircraft up there spraying something. If you do have an idea and you're lying about it, you're covering up a crime against humanity, and that's not only unethical, it's criminal.
I have never heard of anybody spraying it. I know that they do cloud modification work, and for that they have silver iodide or silver iodide.
Is NASA Langley involved in any cloud seeding operations?
No, not now. Years ago, they were looking at that as a way of mitigating hail storms, and they still do that in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And as a way of trying to stimulate precipitation in areas that are real dry. But we don't do any of that kind of work.
Okay, so for people like me, and then I'll let you go, that are concerned about this issue, who do you think we should go to try to get help in testing in our particular areas?
Well, if you think your water or the soil outside your house is contaminated with something, then you'll get the samples, and there's the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality.
I already tried them like 5 years ago, and they ended up backing down. They said they could not use the state's money to test for materials in my yard that they may or may not have come from a mobile source, this, that, and the other. It was just a big another cover-up operation, like all of you government-paid people do. I've gone through all of you. You're all in on it.
The hardest way to get an honest conversation is to call us and accuse us of being part of a big conspiracy.
I have not done that. No, I have not done that. I've been actually the nicest to you that I have been to anybody. I'm usually not this nice. I'm usually very, I'm tearing right into it and demanding help. I've coddled you through this conversation, if anything.
Well, one thing that you can easily look up is what the winds are aloft. And if you suspect you're being poisoned by stuff that is in the atmosphere 45,000 feet over Virginia Beach, you can see that air mass never comes anywhere close to where you live.
Okay, so does that mean that stuff that's being sprayed where would hit us? Like, if the stuff that is being sprayed here will hit Europe, where is the stuff hitting us from?
Well, the atmosphere is if you could put tracers in it, some way of visualizing it, you would see that the air that's above your house comes from different places on different days. It could even be coming from China or from when we had big storms, it's coming from the Gulf of Mexico. The atmosphere is like a big river, and it just kind of it has turbulence. But the air that's at 40,000 feet, it takes a long, long time for it to reach the surface.
How long?
Well, if there's a thunderstorm around, it can happen within an hour, but on days like today, probably a month.
So these airplane emissions are shipped off to Europe to poison the poor people there? How is that fair?
Well, we fly airplanes. I do work to try to understand what forms contrails and how you regulate those, because the clouds are a concern. They trap heat, and that contributes to global warming.
Yeah, but I thought that's the reason why they were doing the geoengineering, which was creating artificial clouds to reflect the sunlight back to space. Now you're saying it traps heat?
It can trap heat, but it reflects shortwave radiation back to space. It all depends on the time of day, and it's really complicated.
Yeah. Well,
that's another thing that's very hard to explain these sort of things to people, is because it's so complicated.
Well, yeah.
It's like climate. People say, well, it's cold outside today. Climate's not changing. Well, climate is what you expect. Weather is what you get. So, there's things that our atmosphere is cleaner now than it's ever been.
Oh my God! The sky is the cleanest it's ever been now.
Well, not ever. But
Well,
in the last 100 years.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst it's ever been, and I prove that on a daily basis on my many different platforms.
Look at the levels of sulfate and nitrate pollution in the atmosphere. Since they have regulated NOx emissions from cars and sulfur emissions from power plants and cut down the amount of sulfur in fuel, it's gotten a hell of a lot cleaner.
So, but what about all the
Back in
barium,
1950s,
strontium,
There
aluminum?
was so much ozone in the air, it would rot car tires.
Okay, so but I've told you about all those elements, cadmium, uranium, and the other nefarious elements that we're finding in the air, that it's proving that we're being poisoned. I mean, that wasn't in the air before.
Well, there was much more kind of radioactive dust in the air back in the 50s when they were doing open-air testing of nuclear devices. That generated a huge amount of unhealthy crap in the air. And also, all these big smokestacks, they were emitting lots of particles and probably heavy metals and everything else. And those have been regulated.
What can NASA do to help the people of Earth that are concerned about the airplane emissions, whether it be water vapor or not? It's blocking out the sun and stopping photosynthesis, the natural curing stuff we need.
We are doing something now. I'm involved in a program funded by NASA Aeronautics, and we are looking at alternative fuels that emit much less soot. And also, we are conducting studies to try to figure out what we can do to reduce contrail formation, and also the effect of the emissions on forming cirrus clouds downwind of flight corridors. So, there's alternative fuels generate less soot, and the number of ice particles that form in an engine exhaust is proportional to the number of soot particles. These little solid particles come out of the engine. You got really high concentrations of hot water vapor. As the exhaust cools, that water vapor condenses onto these soot particles and forms ice. And then that ice acquires, water vapor from the background atmosphere, condenses on these ice particles, and sometimes you see snow falling out of contrails. You see these little snowfalls coming out of there. So we want to understand, how we can disperse the exhaust from aircraft engines, or reduce the number of soot particles in the engine to the point that maybe we don't seed ice formation everywhere. And we agree that contrail cloudiness is a problem. It affects the weather, or it's unsightly, and it affects the balance in the atmosphere. So we're working to try to reduce the incidence of that.
Okay, so now I'm gonna email.
All airplanes do this.
Yeah.
All
the spraying planes do.
Fact. If you fly an airplane that's emitting water vapor in a real cold atmosphere, you get water vapor condensation to form ice. That is unquestionable.
If it was water vapor, I wouldn't give a crap. But anyways, okay, so I'm gonna email you, and you're gonna send me. Can you find the military testing that you guys have done on military aircraft? Any information about hold on a second, the heavy metals, biological material, and chemicals?
That I don't know anything about. There has been. I was part of this. There was a questionnaire they sent out to I don't know 100 different scientists, and this may be where you got my name. 100 scientists, atmospheric scientists, and soil scientists, and they asked us atmospheric scientists about contrails and showed us different pictures and to explain, there's a cloud with a dark spot on it. Is this a contrail, or what's happening here? So, and then there was a set of soil scientists. They asked about all the heavy metals and other things, and this was the title of the paper. It was done by some educational group to see what professional scientists think of these theories that you were talking about. And I can look up the paper and send it to you, but all but two of the atmospheric scientists explained the contrails. And two of them said, well, I don't know what this is, or something like that. But anyway, and then there was one soil scientist who seemed to think that there was some irregularities in the soil chemistry. But I know I've been on a bunch of different airborne flight missions, and there's a group at New Hampshire that collects filter samples, and then they take them back to the lab and analyze them for the chemical composition, and mainly you see calcium, sodium, chloride, sulfate, nitrate, just the normal things. I don't know that they see any strontium. There's lots of hydrocarbons. Trees emit hydrocarbons that turn into aerosols, and vehicle traffic generates a lot of soot and nitrate aerosols. So yeah. I don't, other than dust, that's where you get mineral. You're contending that all of these aircraft flying over and creating contrails are poisoning the atmosphere.
Right.
I'm contending that unless, I'm contending that the contrails you see are a natural, or not a natural phenomena, but they're a natural flying aircraft that generate water vapor through very cold regions of the atmosphere.
Would you be willing to help us independently, do something to help us research the planes that we suspect might be spraying something into the atmosphere?
Well, my focus is on the contrails, and
yeah, but you being a scientist, you need to be open-minded, unless your hands are tied.
Open-minded, but
I think your hands are tied with NASA.
I've been doing research in this area since 1994. So I've been at this 22 years, and I've heard all these arguments, and I've flown behind military aircraft and civilian aircraft and NASA aircraft and made lots of measurements in the atmosphere. Been involved in 37 different flight campaigns to study the composition of the atmosphere. So I have not seen any smoking guns.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so can I send you some smoking guns, and will you investigate it?
No.
Wait a second. See, your hands are tied. Who pays your bill? Is it the government pays your salary?
Yes.
Okay,
but
so
they don't tell me what to do.
You just said you wouldn't even look.
From the government.
You said you wouldn't even look at my smoking gun evidence.
I will look at it, but I don't have the time to do this.
You don't have the time to invest. You just said you've dedicated 20 years into contrails. You won't take a day to investigate claims of people that you said have been calling and bothering you and sending you emails and stuff for a long time now about this.
Yeah. Well, usually the NASA public outreach, or what do they call it?
We need an atmospheric scientist. I spoke with the National Weather Service, and they specifically directed me to you and told me that you would be the only one that would be able to help me. An atmospheric research scientist. Yes, sir. So I tracked you down, and this is what I'm getting.
Weather Service told you about me? I don't know.
Yes, they did, and I have it all recorded and documented.
Okay. All right. Well, I will look at it, but it's my personal belief that, well, spraying stuff from aircraft is a really piss-poor way of trying to poison people on the surface of the Earth. Because it's hit and miss.
Yeah, but it's combined with many different other things.
I'd put something in the water supply.
If there is something in the water supply, sir, there is something. There's fluoride. There's fluoride and chlorine and other stuff. Look at the people of Flint, Michigan. Their water's poisoned. I mean, they are putting stuff in our food with the GMOs and other stuff. So it's not just the airplane pollution. When it's combined with all of these other elements that we're being poisoned with, it is deadly, and it's a slow kill operation. I'm not saying they're dumping stuff on us to kill us today. It's a slow kill. It's going to give us cancer. Respiratory illness is skyrocketing.
And there are groups. There's environmental quality groups. There's watchdog groups that are out monitoring the quality of the air. And it's not easy to get heavy metals and stuff airborne. The stuff is big. It doesn't go very far. Most of the aerosols you see in the atmosphere are just nanometers in diameter. And so, you know, we have an aerosol mass spectrometer, and we can measure the composition of aerosols in the atmosphere, and we don't see heavy metals.
Yeah, but you just told me that you don't have any data on that, that you haven't researched that. Where is this? I want to see your research on the heavy metals.
You know, I could make a full-time job out of looking for this stuff, but my focus and what I get paid to do is to try to reduce the emissions.
Can't you take that as your call to action to independently be an activist yourself on the side, or is that a conflict of interest?
Well, I have interest in this area. I'm very concerned about the environment. I contribute to environmental causes. And when I retire, I want to be more active. But this is not something that I personally believe is a concern.
How long until you retire?
3 years.
Oh, good. In 3 years, will you contact me and work by my side? Because I'll still be doing this 3 years from now, unfortunately.
Well, the things that I believe are a significant issue are the stuff that are coming out of fracking wells and out of, Congress is telling these guys, oh, you can't study what's coming out of these oil operations. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They're emitting that stuff at ground level. It goes right into the communities.
Right.
Forget airplanes, stuff they put out from smokestacks and from cars and that's what poisons the community.
Right. I can't forget airplanes when I go out, like on a day today, I just step outside of my house and it looks like Armageddon in the sky. I can't forget about it when it's a constant daily reminder.
Well, if you smell something that stinks, I can guarantee it's probably coming from a source very near the surface and very near where you live. And that's the stuff that gets you.
Right. Okay.
So that's the stuff I would be worrying about and spend my activist time on.
I spend my time on everything. Yeah.
On wasteful use of resources. I think that's a
yeah. Okay, so I'm going to send you an email, and then you're going to send me back as much data as you can for me to share with my following?
Sure.
Okay, I would really appreciate that, and I appreciate you...
But I'll warn you, it's scientific literature. It's
ooh! We might not be able to understand it with our feeble little
that's
minds.
Some people don't take it seriously. It's not written for the public.
Okay, well, I'm sure...
Like me that's got PhDs and 20 years experience.
Well, your PhD is not helping us right now. It's just, I mean, basically you're saying the people that pay you, they pay you to study contrails. You are ignoring chemical trails that they may or may not be.
I'm not ignoring emissions from aircraft.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's all we're concerned about.
We have identified what the poisonous emissions are from aircraft.
You can't because you haven't identified.
We're trying to create ways of reducing it.
I'm trying to tell you that you just can't scientifically state that because there's many different aircraft emitting many different things into the atmosphere at any given time.
Well, I can't say anything about military aircraft other than we've flown behind 9 different F-16s, some C-130s, and, you know, it's just the typical stuff. They've got military aircraft have commercial engines on them typically, except for the fighter aircraft. And they burn, you know, they can pull right up to a standard fuel pump at an airport, load up with Jet A and take off and fly. But I've seen contrails form off the tail of an airplane in real humid conditions.
Yeah, this is the stuff that's being
coming out of the airplane.
Yeah, I have just documented, and not even me. Other people have documented this stuff, and it's not coming out of the engines. It's either coming out of the wingtips, it's coming out of a different hose. So it looks like these aircraft have been converted into spraying planes. I mean, and
well, if you look at a fighter jet on a really, really humid day, and they cut a real fast turn, you know, you see these jet jocks that turn a 90-degree turn as fast as they can, and you'll see little contrails coming off the wingtips. And the reason for that is there's a low-pressure ridge behind the wingtips that creates water vapor saturation when it's really humid outside. And, you know, and you'll hear the airplane go when it does that. And that's the little supersonic pocket behind the wing.
Have they told you not to give us any information? Like, if they told you if anyone calls concerned about this, to tell them that it's contrails?
No. I don't. Nobody has told me not to say anything about anything. You know, I have been told not to talk about climate change to certain people.
Okay.
But that's because certain people don't believe in it, and they have the power to affect our budgets.
Okay. I understand.
We can't talk to some of the people that give us funding about that because they're like, oh, well, that's wasting money. So if you really, really want to worry about stuff that affect you directly, rather than thinking about what planes are spraying out at 40,000 feet, think about what the oil companies are doing and other things like that. That's my advice.
Okay, thank you, sir. I worry about that as well. All right, so
well, don't worry too much. Try to have some fun.
I know, I will. Okay, so I'm sending
you. You live in Virginia Beach, which is a nice place to be.
Oh my God, it's the pits of hell. It's literally like just a total toxic waste dump. I'm surprised I'm still living. I'm young, so I'm able to survive some of this, but yeah, it's treacherous. All right, so I'm going to send you an email now, so you can send me all the information you possibly can back, so I can give it to my friends and people that are concerned about this.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right, bye-bye.